Jess.
Hi, Nikki.
How are you?
I am, I'm a little bit, actually a lot caffeinated. For whatever reason, I got a really good night's sleep and
Amazing.
I have been not drinking coffee the entirety of the day, but at a certain point, I have coffee and then I just switch to like a really nice tea and it makes me feel like $1,000,000.
Ah, amazing. I, on the other
No.
hand, weirdly, I'm
You're
starting to,
tired.
yeah, I am. Well, I was awake a lot of last night because, as you know, maybe I've ramped up my running in sort of prep to start, doing the training for this ultra marathon that we're doing. And just at night, my legs are like, it's like I've got restless leg syndrome. It's like all
I
my
mean, of course.
tendons are pulling, and I feel like there's fluid being sort of like being retained, but I don't have cankles, so it's not fluid. It is definitely a muscular problem, and so it really, like, legitimately kept me awake a lot of last night. So I didn't run today, so I'm hoping that they've actually, like, things have settled a bit, so I get a better sleep. But I wish I
I
felt
have
like
to
this.
ask you though, really quick, how many miles is an ultra marathon and when are you running that?
Yeah, great question. So, the definition of an ultra marathon is anything over 42.2 kilometers or 26.2 miles. But
Oh
we are doing a
God.
stage race. So, over
Oh, okay,
six
good.
days, we are
Oh
running
God.
270 kilometers.
Oh my God. So what
I
does that
know.
break down per day?
Ah, between 30 and 70 kilometers
Mm.
a day. I know. I know. Even
You're
as
so
I
just so I
say it.
understand, you're gonna do 30 miles a day for 6 days.
No, so we're doing
Okay.
30 kilometers to 70 kilometers. So they're
Okay.
of varying distances across 6 days for a
I'm your
total
California
of,
bestie, remember?
that's right, for a total of 270 kilometers, which is approximately, what's that, like 160 miles or something, 170 miles? I don't know, something like that across 6 days. It's a lot. It's a lot. And now
I
I'm
just
questioning
can't.
myself.
I mean, but again, let's like breakdown of mileage in the course of the day
Yeah.
is it roughly like you're basically running a marathon every day?
I think if you, yes, I think, Jess, it would average around a marathon a day, slightly over.
And you've never done anything. I know we're supposed to be like interviewing like, the person that you are and where you came from, but I just am still
That's
trying to like
fine.
fathom how in the hell you can run that many miles a day. So like so you your body, like how do you even feel restored enough to get up and do that? I mean, we're not sure. Is this your first, let me ask you, like, is
Mm.
this your first ultra?
It's my first stage race.
Okay. Which is
How
different than
than an
how is that
ultra.
different?
Yes,
Okay.
because an ultra is like a 1 day event. So you'll enter a 50K or you'll enter a
Right.
100K,
Right.
100 mile,
This is like an
right?
ultra over the course of 6 days. It's like an
Yeah, it
ultra
is.
every
It is.
day.
And actually on, like, training camps, because we've had a few training camps across the years where we just decide, oh, let's go and do a mission weekend in Queenstown, right? And so we'll go to Queenstown, which here in New Zealand is it's a bit of a mountain town. It's a touristy sort of place, which is lovely. And you will decide to run between sort of 20 and 40 kilometers a day for about 3 or 4 days. And what you find, actually, your body almost warms into it.
I
Like,
see. Okay.
you sort of feel really sore at the start of day two, but you almost run through it to then feel better on day three. However, Jess, I just wonder, at what point in your life does your body not warm into it? And actually, it just always feels hard. So, and that's how I feel today. I'm like, I've got to keep my mind in the game, and that's actually the hardest thing, is to keep myself motivated to do some training. But I mean, I'll always train, as I alluded to in our previous podcast when we were chatting
Yep.
about your sport history. Like, I can't imagine ever not moving, but I am questioning myself as to why I even entered this. But this is very normal for me. I always go through this almost denial slash rejection stage of the event itself, and then I get more motivated. It definitely ebbs and flows with my
Well,
motivation.
it's fascinating because you asked me last time we talked, you're like, so my sport is like, shorter, right? It's like 12 minutes, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. And yours is like, it's 200 miles.
It's quite it's
I'm
it's
like, oh
quite
my God,
different.
we're like, so like, I'm like, I don't, you're like, how do you not go long periods? And I'm thinking, long periods, like 45, 60 minutes. So it's so interesting. It is so relative. And, the best part is we talked about this, is you have to find the thing that brings you joy. And even in my 12 or 10 minutes of hard, you know, hard kettlebell sport intervals, it's, you know, it's scary. There's always a little bit of fear, but there's a whole lot more joy. So I think you find your thing. And it sounds like for whatever it's all an experience. So you're going to try it, and you may decide to do this. What is it? Stagecoach
Stage
thing? What's
race,
it called
yeah.
again? Okay, stage
Stage
race.
race, yeah.
I'll bring my horse. It'll be perfect. And you'll do that. But I think that's what makes you pretty exceptional, to just kind of plant this potential seed in your head, and then even attempting and go off of it. Because I think just showing up and going for it is the win. So
I agree.
I
And in fact, and I have to remind myself of that. And, we were out yesterday and I was feeling pretty sore for just this injury thing that I'm managing right now, and another neural problem. And, which is what I think my legs are actually related to. But I was just sort of trying to ground myself in the fact that how lucky it is that it's a Monday morning and I am out in nature, and Hubster is there as well. And we are sharing this experience, and I'm just so grateful that I have that opportunity. So it's I've really learned over the years to bring my mind back to that, because there was really a time when I would begrudge almost every run that I quote unquote had to go on. Not even
yeah.
sort of putting, like, it was such a disconnect between the fact that I actually signed up for these events, so didn't have to do it, but I was one that chose to. So it was, so I've really sort of moved beyond that, which I've got to say I'm pretty proud of for myself, like, to have sort of reached that place. It doesn't, and it just means that when I have a run like yesterday, which was physically challenging, I know that I'm getting a lot of mental strength from it, and I'm really, like, it's sort of
I love
bruising,
that. That's
bruising that,
good.
yeah, greasing that groove.
I love it. For all the physical challenges, I love that you're like, but I'm gaining a shit ton of like emotional and mental fortitude from this,
Yes.
which, right? I mean, one is not, you can't disconnect them.
Mm.
They happen together. I, well, I love it because you are a doctor, but I think we should just like remind everybody what you are actually a doctor of. And then I'm going, because even though we are near and dear to each other, we both have relatively complicated last names. So mine is DiBiase, which no one, including myself, and I can pronounce sometimes. And your amazing last name. So you are obviously Dr. Mikki, and I love to absolutely hatch it, but I'm going to go for it right now. I'm going to say it is perfectly, I'm going to say it perfectly, Williden.
Yeah, amazing.
Did I get it
Yes,
right?
you did. And
I just needed to elongate. Sometimes I want to shorten your last name. I want to like say Wilden, but it's
yeah,
not. It's Williden. It's like a long race.
yes, and it
Good.
actually is. And
Yes.
people do what you do, Wilden, or they do Willendin. They elongate and put a stop
Yes.
sort of in it.
Yes.
But yes, that
Yes.
is that. But I'm happy to be known as Dr. Mikki. Actually, that is not true. Like, it's interesting, Jess. Like, I know a lot of people, don't mind, or are known as Doctor whatever their last name is, or whatever in our space. But I sort of feel like, I mean, I do have a doctorate, and yes, that means that I'm a doctor, but it's not like, I don't like the title necessarily, and
Okay.
it's absolutely nothing against doctors, but in fact, it's quite the opposite. I feel like those people who went through medical school have actually earned and deserved their title and status as doctor. But you've got the likes of people who have done nutrition, which is what mine is in, public health nutrition, or, physical education, or exercise physiology. Like, are we really deserving of our doctor title? And I know people will say yes. And I'm not sure. Like, I'm just more comfortable being known as Mikki Williden, PhD, rather than Dr. Mikki Williden. I don't know.
Isn't that funny? Well, I'm just gonna mess it all up and call you Dr. Mikki Williden, like super awesome freaking human. So I'm gonna like make your name. I'm actually gonna make it as long as possible. But with all
Amazing.
that being said, I think everything that you're doing is important to the field. So at the end of the day, I think anybody that has, whether you want to put the doctor in front of your name or behind it, you're doing something to improve health and health care and in our world, and that's super important. I want to know, just kind of like very straightforwardly, what got you into this field? Like, if you had to kind of like answer this question to yourself, what originally drew you to getting a PhD in the first place?
Yeah. So I think my early obsession with nutrition and exercise, because that's what it is, like it's an obsession that has been
Hmm.
lifelong and it's just evolved over the years to a different space to what it was early on. But it really sort of grew from two places. One was my mother, because she was overweight as we were growing up, and I'm a twin, and I was an overweight. I was the overweight one in between me and Laurie, and so I was more like my mum like that. So when my mum dieted, it was actually a really good bonding experience for me to also diet with her. And and I know that sounds terrible and I would never recommend it to anyone now. Like, oh yeah, bond with your child by getting them to go on a diet with you. Of course you would never do that. But this was in the 80s where we didn't know, any better. 80s and 90s. So it was certainly my mother sort of sparked my, I guess, interest in manipulating your diet for what you looked like. But then there was a basketball coach when I was in Form 3, which is freshman year at high school. And all of my friends played basketball, and I was just useless, was terrible, and I was also unfit, and I used to write myself fake notes for phys ed classes and stuff like that. Like, I was not interested at all, despite the fact that I would want to go on a diet. I was never interested in actually doing exercise. um, and he and my phys ed teacher, who also happened to be coach of our women's basketball team, but also New Zealand women's basketball team. So he was the top coach in the country. Um, he was so lovely. He didn't really care much about physical education, though. I don't know. He told us that the center of gravity was like the tip of our nose, and that's why you like fell over. Like, I'm not sure how much of that he was just teasing, but he said to me, he was like, Mikki, you don't have to be good on the sports field because you're pretty good in the classroom. So, it doesn't really matter. But all of my friends, Jess, at the time were really athletic. And I had FOMO. I really wanted, and I also just sort of thought, well, why can't I be good on the sports field? Why can't I prove him wrong and be good at basketball? So over our summer between freshman and sophomore, or third form and fourth form, this was when I went on a diet with my mum, a serious diet, and I started running. And I'm like, I'm gonna show you, Mr. Dickel, that I can play basketball. So first I've got to get fit. So and I came back to school and we had like a fitness test, and I came second in the class. And I remember his eyes popping out of his head, seeing that I was like second, and that was just, and even though his comment to me, like someone might have portrayed that as, or sort of thought that was like quite a negative thing to say, it, like, I'm just so thankful that we had that conversation that one time in gym class, because if it wasn't for that, I don't know that I would have ended up sort of where I'm at. So he was still right. I was still absolutely terrible at basketball, that's for sure. But
But he fast tracked essentially your drive, your determination, your competitive nature to like I can do this. I can be killer in the classroom and I can be killer on the court or the track and field or whatever it was. And so then you sort of kind of got this like need for speed, if you will. And so
yeah.
you're like, I'm going to start running and become really good at this sport. And then kind of what happened after that? Then what was the next step?
Yeah, so across my sort of teenage years, I was just, dabbling in the gym and running, and just physical activity became a habit, and it became part of my life. And it really did. And in terms of nutrition, I was always interested in healthy food, but didn't always necessarily know what was healthy. Like, my friend and I used to make cheesecakes that were fat free and then eat the entire things, like
Yeah.
so you still skewed on the food front, but always still this interest and desire to eat well in a way that made me made me feel fit and that kept me slim. I wasn't actually that successful. Like, I absolutely went through periods of, putting on, 5 pounds, 5 kilos, and then losing it. And that was, fairly normal. And it wasn't until I got to university and I was intending to do phys ed, not nutrition, but phys ed as a degree. But I was put off for a couple of years, actually, of doing it. It wasn't until my third year at university that I'm like, right, no, I'm just going to do it. And so I thought I wanted to do accounting and, be rich. I'm not sure what I thought, but anyway, it was super boring. So I thought, right, I'll do phys ed. And then in
Kitchen
my
board.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then in my phys ed class, I had a couple of girls who I was flatting with who were also doing nutrition degree, and they were like, "It's perfect." Because at that point I realized I did not want to be a personal trainer. Like that was the last thing that I was so not my personality. So I thought, well, I might as well just do nutrition. I like food, so and that was the thing that sort of set me off. So then I finished those degrees. I did my master's in obesity. So I was, as a geek, I was just really interested in the research side of things. And I was initially interested, sort of from a research perspective, on more population-based health strategies like obesity and like, stress management and things like that. But clinically, and I was interested in athletes because I myself was an athlete, and I still identify as an athlete, even though I'm clearly a different athlete now than what I was then. But also fat loss because
Yeah,
of my
clearly you're
own.
the kind that runs like 200 miles in 6 days.
Yeah, but like you're like how good you are, you know what I mean. So I did my postgraduate at Otago, and then did my PhD whilst I was working as a lecturer at a university. And I finished that maybe 13 years ago now. So yeah.
If
And then
you
just
could say one thing about your, all of this research and all of the education and everything that you've done is still the thing that you're most passionate about, what would it be?
learning. I love learning, actually. Like,
Mhm.
and this is where, and this is sort of like stepping back from what know. It's more about, there are so many ways to get or to arrive at a similar professional space that I'm in, and that you are in. And, all you have to do is go on social media and see these accounts of macro coaches, menopause coach, you see Meno Shred, you see, all of these programs targeting, and oh, not targeting, that's the wrong word, for women of our age, which is essentially what we're doing here. We're wanting to provide this sort of education, but more than that, sort of platform for people. And it, I, I think that it's not necessary to do a science degree in nutrition or to do postgraduate degree in nutrition to call yourself and to be an effective coach. I think obviously the relationship piece is really important, but I do I do think that many people can help someone get where they want to go, but there are few people that can really sort of pull back if things don't go right. Like if things are going right, then you're fine with any old macro coach or Meno program. But it's when things don't go right and these people don't have the experience or the knowledge or the background or who know how to understand research. Like, I think that's a real problem. And research is hard to understand. And I have been in this space, like, as I said, I got my PhD, like, what did I say? Like 13 years ago or something. And so I've been reading research since beginning my master's all the way back, 25, 26 years ago. And even now I look at some research papers and I'm like, what the hell am I looking at? Not because I'm an idiot, but because it's complex. And so I,
It is. I kind of feel like it's the person who can, I love what you said about it's not when things are going right. It's the
mm,
person who can pivot with you when things are maybe going awry.
yeah, yes,
Right. And they think you that is just a wonderful point. And somebody who's seasoned and sort of has this wealth of knowledge, right? It did not just so zeroed in on one certification or one degree or very limited experience of the people that they're working with. You just don't have the same kind of foundation to work with. And I think for you, it sounds like, would you say you're not only skillful at disseminating all this research, like taking this information, but then you're also able to sort of give it to your clients in a way that's right for them, right? Because
yes,
all this information is meaningless if
yeah.
you don't actually know to take what is important from it.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. And I feel, and I think the reason why I bring it up, which keeps me sort of passionate in my job, is because of what you said. Like information is everywhere, and it's very and I see information being misinterpreted all of the time. And then if this is the thing that people then sort of draw on um, to sort of inform their next steps or a program or anything like that, then that's where I feel it's my responsibility with the knowledge that I have and the training that I've got to actually call out certain programs or positions or and say why it is that this is in fact my informed opinion. And I it's not it hasn't always been in my personality to sort of stand in that space as an expert, and maybe that's part of the I don't like being called a doctor thing. Like maybe this is all sort of tied into it, but it's actually that I've grown more comfortable in that space, and possibly because of the absolute influx of these other people who speak with authority that they shouldn't necessarily have.
And therefore, that's why you're a doctor.
And therefore that's why
Yeah,
that's why I'm a doctor.
it's understanding the human brain, but it's really, it sounds like, I think the specialness of you is that you've got all of this experience, and then your experience and your skills are only as good as how you use them,
Yeah,
right? You
yeah,
literally, like, you're using them in the best way possible, in the way that makes the most sense for people, because I think sometimes we almost have too much information. We need less.
yeah,
We just
yeah.
need the right information.
I
So,
completely.
it's nice. I love that you are a researcher. I love that you think about this information, how it pertains to, a very important demographic of women,
Yeah, yeah.
and how they can benefit from it. So it's nice that you literally kind of are like a library of treasures. All this
Awesome.
information is pretty fantastic. I still can't get over. I'm trying to think to myself, how in the world could I do like a marathon every single day? But I think you to say, one thing I would say is, do you spend a lot of time on your own, and you and hubby's kind of nutritional planning prior to a race like this? Are you really strategic about your food planning going into something like this and leading up to it?
Certainly will need to be for the planning involved in this event. And I think we eat pretty well to take like we don't necessarily do anything particularly special for for our events because I think on balance we try and hit protein targets. It's not like we talk about it and like how much protein if like I just know that if I'm
You
if I'm
don't?
eating this.
That's
No.
what I think about you when you go to bed at night. I'm like, oh my God, how much? I'm sure she was like doing an analysis of her protein intake.
No, no, I don't need to. It's already in my head. But
That's right.
yes. And I just, if I think, oh, Barry, you don't have enough protein in that lunch, I'm just going to chuck an extra like chicken drumstick there. Um, but one thing though, Jess, interesting. So one thing we did talk about yesterday is actually we need to let's go have like a period of 4 weeks where we do a little bit more sort of fat adapted training. So we just sort of increase our metabolic flexibility as we lead into this
Mm.
event because and look at my diet is by no means perfect and
I
it's
am literally writing notes. Metabolic flexibility,
yeah,
leading down the road for our next podcast.
definitely,
I love
definitely.
everything about that.
Yeah, for sure. And look, I certainly don't have a perfect diet, but I don't have a terrible diet either. But there are certainly areas where we're like, well, if we're going to get through this event, the less inflammatory sort of triggers that we have, the easier we'll be able to recover to then be able to get up and do it the next day, which sadly means that beer will probably be off the table for a good four
Say it's
weeks.
not so.
I know, but and look, I say this, so we had this intention, and we haven't yet sort of sealed the deal, but for the most part, our diet's pretty good. But that would be probably the major thing that we think about, and hydration. To be fair, like so many people walk around dehydrated and it's an absolute like energy killer and you just cannot recover. So that's another thing
It's
we focus
true.
on.
No,
Yeah.
it's true. It's such an important part of your understanding in your field. It's such an important part for everybody's fields.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh,
Whatever we
100%.
are doing in our life, whatever our life asks of us, there's really nothing more important than having some kind of understanding nutritionally and how and from a point of hydration. You can never be, schooled enough in this
I know.
area because it's such an important part of overall health. What would you say is like what's your mantra? What's one mantra for yourself every day?
That's a good question. I have many actually that I sort of like rotate through, and they sort of
Yeah,
all
okay. What
that.
are like the three that come to your mind? Mickey mantras, we'll call them.
Be it till you see it. I really like that one,
Mm,
and I think that just brings this level of sort of confidence, and it steers your mind to to act in a way that you want to live your life, basically, because you want to
I
be
love
this
it.
particular person, but in order to get there you need to have actions and behaviors that align with that person. So I
Yes.
think be it till you see it is definitely one which I think about on most days, and probably because I talk to clients so much about that too, because it's such an important mindset is the most important thing, as you know, Jess, when it comes to health behavior.
It's
Like
huge.
mindset is the thing. So I'm
You
gonna
can't
say that
change a
one.
behavior, right? Unless
Yep.
you're practicing it,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
moving it forward.
Yeah.
And then the last thing that I'm curious for a uh, PhD like yourself in nutrition, what is your hands down favorite meal? We know it's beer, it's your favorite drink.
Yeah.
What's your favorite meal in the whole wide world?
Oh, I love a good ribeye steak. Love it. It is just absolutely delicious. Using First Light. So First Light meat it's grass fed New Zealand meat. It's available in New Zealand and in the US.
Oh, yum.
And
Okay.
yeah, and it is honestly just the most delicious, beautiful and tender, and particularly when you've had a long day, either from a sort of brain fatigue perspective, or you've been
Mm,
training like physically hard, or a combo of both. It's just so nourishing, and I think that'll be something. Obviously, we'll dive deep on into these podcasts as well, Jess, is just the importance of nourishing food, and some of the
yeah.
perceptions on certain foods and how they just don't align with the actual food. There's so much
My
that we
God, I
love
love
talking
that.
about.
No, it's so true. I think too often we nourish ourselves with things that aren't really that nourishing. To
Yeah.
exactly to your point, like I'm trying to dream about myself having a relationship with a ribeye as opposed to a cherry pie. So I think I could make that switch.
Well, I think we'll time will tell, Jess. Time will tell on our Strength
We'll
Renewed
tell.
podcast.
I'm here for it. I'm happy to be running, no pun intended, alongside I'm putting your doctor at the front, Dr. Mikki Williden. I love
Amazing. Thank you,
it.
Jess DiBiase.
Thank you. See, you said it even like this. You said it like a true Italian, Nikki.
DiBiase.
DiBiase. I'm glad we had
Beautiful.
this time together.
Yeah, me too. All right, Jess. We'll see you next time.
Okay.